In this Blender tutorial, I will show you how to create this procedural glitter material in Blender. And I'm also going to show you how to create this custom node to change the glitter colors. So I'm going to be making all of these colors here, and then you can just drag the different colors into the base color, and that's going to change the type of glitter. So we have colorful light. We also have this original one, and this one is using this color ramp here. So you can change the colors of the color ramp to change the glitter. We also have silver. We also have gold, green here. And then we have a purple blue, and then we also have a light blue, and we have a red, and then we also have this peppermint one, and this one is kind of like red and white, so kind of like the colors of peppermint candy. And then we also have this custom hue right here. So if you plug the custom hue into the base color, then you can just drag this hue value, and that's going to change between all of the hues. And you'll be able to change the scale of the glitter just by changing the scale value here on this texture. Now I'm going to be using the Cycles rendering engine in Blender to get some more realism, but if you wanted to use Blender Eevee, this material will work really great in Blender Eevee. As you can see, this is it in Eevee and it looks really nice, but I will be using Cycles. If you'd like to help support me and my YouTube channel and purchase the project files, then you can get that on my Gumroad store and my Patreon page with the links in the description. And you can also check out my Blender procedural material packs if you'd like to purchase more of my materials. And if you'd like to learn how to create any of my Blender procedural materials, then you can check out my Blender procedural material tutorial playlist here on YouTube. All the links are in the description. So before we start, I thought I'd show you what I have set up in the 3D space if you want to set it up the same way that I have. So I pressed Shift A, I went here to Mesh, and I added an icosphere. And then when you add the icosphere, if you click right behind me on the Add Icosphere settings, I turn these subdivisions up to 6 just so that it is a nice smooth sphere. And then using the Object Context menu, I shaded the object smooth. But of course, you could add the glitter to any object that you want. And then I also added a camera here, and I pointed the camera at the icosphere. And I'm in the shader editor right here, and what I want to do is actually preview the world nodes. So I can click right here on the shader editor and click on object, and I can change this instead to world. So for the lighting, I added in this Photo Studio Loft Hall, and this is the 1K HDR version. So this is a free HDRI from polyhaven.com, links in the description if you'd like to download it. So how you add in the HDRI is you can click right up here to add a new world, and then right here on color, if you click on the yellow dot, you can choose environment texture under texture, and then you can click on the open button and open up the HDRI. And then once you've added in the downloaded HDRI, I want to make the HDRI less saturated so that it's not adding as many colors to the glitter. So again, right over here on the shader editor, if you click here and change it to world, you can preview the world nodes instead. And I'm going to press Shift A, I'm going to go here to the search, and I'm going to search for the hue saturation value node, and I'm going to stick it after the HDRI. So here's the HDRI in the background, but it's actually got a lot of different colors, and I don't want that to really change the colors of the glitter, so I want it to be less saturated. So I can simply change the saturation down, and I'm going to turn the saturation down to like a 0.4. So now you can see the HDRI is still giving us some nice light, but there aren't as many colors. You could turn the saturation all the way down to 0, and then it would be black and white, but I'm just going to turn the saturation to a 0.4. And then I also added this area light here, so if you press Shift A, you can go to light and add an area light, and I just pointed this area light at the sphere. And then if you click right over here to go to the object data properties, I turn the power up to 1000, and also on the shape here I changed this to disk. And then if you want to make the background transparent so you can't see it, you can click right here on the render properties, and then you can open up the film tab, and then you can check mark the transparent button. And so this way now the background is transparent, and so you can't see it. And then also I want to make the colors look a little bit nicer. So if you go right here to the render properties, you can open up the color management, and I'm going to use the view transform of Filmic, and I'm going to change the look here to high contrast, and this will pop out the colors and make everything more contrasty and saturated. So again, I'm in the shading workspace, and I have the 3D space right here, and I'm in the rendered view, and then I want to preview the shader nodes here. So I can click on world, and I can change this back to object. And then I'm also going to be using the Node Wrangler add-on to preview the different nodes. So if you don't have the Node Wrangler enabled, you can just click on Edit, and you can go to the Preferences, and then over there in the Add-ons tab, you can just search for Node Wrangler and just checkmark the Node Wrangler add-on, and it's built into Blender, and I'll show you how to use it in the video. So just select the object, and then you can click on New, and I'm just going to rename this object. So to create the texture for the glitter, I'm going to press Shift A, and let's go to the search, and I'm going to search for the Voronoi texture, and let's drop the Voronoi down here. And then because we turned on the Node Wrangler add-on, I can hold down the Control and Shift key and select different nodes, and that is going to preview the node on the object. And I actually want to Control Shift and select the Voronoi again, and this way we're going to preview the color value. And you can see the color value is going to give us all these random dots, and this is what we're going to use for the glitter. Now, right here on the F1, you could leave this at F1 if you want to, but I am going to change it to F2. I think F2 looks a bit better because now it's a bit more detailed, and it kind of looks like the little pieces of glitter are on top of each other. Because if you took like some craft glitter and you poured it over an object, all the little pieces of glitter would kind of be overlapping, so I think F2 looks better. It is more detailed, so I'm going to use F2. And then with the Voronoi texture selected, I'm also going to press Ctrl T, and that's going to add the texture coordinate and mapping. But then I don't need the mapping node. The mapping node is just used to transform the texture, but I don't need it, so I can select it and press X to delete it. And then I want to take the object and I want to put that into the vector, and the object coordinates is going to place the texture on the object more evenly. And then let's also turn up the scale of the Voronoi. So I'm going to turn the scale up to like a 200. And now if I zoom in closely, you can see we have a nice detailed texture there for the glitter. Now I want to change the colors of the glitter. So I'm going to press Shift A. Let's go to the search, and I'm going to search for a color ramp, and let's stick the color ramp right here after the Voronoi, and make sure the Voronoi color is going into the factor. And then you can Control Shift and select the color ramp to preview it. So we can now use the color ramp to make the colors for the glitter. Now if you look closely at glitter, glitter is so reflective that some little pieces of glitter look very dark and other pieces look very light, because they are reflecting different colors, and also each piece of glitter has a slightly different rotation. So to kind of get that effect where some parts are really dark and some parts are really light, I'm going to keep the black and white values, but I'm going to add colors here in the center. So I'm going to hold down the Control key and then click right there, and that's going to add another tab, and I'm going to bring this tab kind of about there, kind of a little over to this side. And then you can of course make any glitter colors that you want, but for the base color of the glitter, I'm just going to go with pink. So I actually want to have a couple different colors here to kind of give the pink a little bit of variation. So I'm going to click on this gray tab right here, and I'm going to make this kind of a purple color, kind of a light pinkish purple. And if you want to use the same color that I'm using, you can go over to the hex value and you can punch in 754D-A3, and that's the exact color that I'll be using. And then I want to add another pink color, so I'm going to hold down the Control key and click right there. That's going to add another tab, and then this one I want to be a bit more saturated and a bit brighter. And the hex value I'll be using for this bright pink is going to be a hex value of FF51EA. So you can punch that into the hex value to use the same color, or just use whatever color you want. So now if you zoom in really close, you can see we have kind of like 4 different colors. We have like the purplish, the pinkish, and then we also have some white and black, and that's going to look really nice for the glitter. So now let's take the color, and I'm going to put that into the base color of the principled shader, and then I can Control Shift and select the principled shader. Now glitter is very reflective, so I'm going to take this metallic value and I'm going to turn it all the way up to 1, and that will make it more metallic, and so it'll look more like glitter. And then I'm going to click and drag just to box select these nodes, and I'm going to bring them back a little bit, because I want to take this color ramp and I also want to put it into the roughness and the normal. So first let's put it into the roughness. So I can take the color here and I'm going to put that into the roughness. So this way the white and black values of the color ramp are going to determine how shiny or rough the glitter is. Now I want to have more control over this, so I can click on this color ramp and I can press Shift D to duplicate it, and let's stick it after the first color ramp before it goes into the roughness. And then I want to reset the color ramp, so with this color ramp selected, you can hit the backspace and that's going to reset it. So if you make the colors darker, the glitter is going to be more shiny. If I click on the white tab, I can turn this way down. You can see if I make it all the way to black, it's just going to be like a mirror because it is so shiny. But if I turn it up and make it lighter, it's going to be more rough. So I want it to be a bit more shiny, so I'm going to turn this color a little bit down. And then on this black tab here, I'm going to bring this up a little bit so that everything is a bit more rough. And if you want to use the same exact colors that I'm using, then right over here on this first one, this is going to be slightly darker, and this is going to be 7F, 7F, 7F. That is the hex value. And then for this one over here, this is slightly lighter, so this hex value is A4, A4, A4. And then also I can take the color here and I want to put it into the normal because I want to give it a little bit of bump to make the glitter chunks look like they're popping out. Now, when I put the color into the normal, you can see there's some weird shading issues. Some of the parts look really dark and that doesn't look right. And that is because this is color data, but then this is normal data. So we need to convert the color data into normal data that the shader can use. So let's press Shift A. I can go to the search and I'm going to search for the bump node, and let's stick the bump node after this color ramp before it goes into the normal. And then I want the color to be going into the height value, and that'll actually convert it to normal data. So now if I zoom in there, you can see the glitter looks very bumpy. Now that is a bit too strong, so I'm going to take the strength and I'm just going to turn that down to like a 0.4, so it will still be very bumpy, but it won't be quite as strong. And that is really it. That is the procedural glitter material. So you can change the colors by changing these two colors here. You could also add more colors in the color ramp if you wanted to. And then you could also drag this scale value to make the glitter bigger or smaller. So I'm going to give this glitter material a final render, and then I'm going to use Blender's compositor to give it some glare to make it look like it's shiny and make it look even more like glitter. And then after that, I'll show you how to make the color variation. So first, I'm just going to give this a render. So once the render is finished, you can just click right here on the compositing tab, and then you can click on use nodes, and this will give you a render layers and a composite. And also make sure you turn on the backdrop to see the render in the background. So the first thing that I want to do is denoise this, so I can press Shift A, I can go to the search, and I'm going to search for a denoise node, and let's stick the denoise node right here, and then I can click on the accurate and I can change it instead to fast. And then what I'm also going to do is hold down the Shift key and right click and drag over this wire and let go, and that is going to add a reroute. And then because we turned on the Node Wrangler add-on, I can Control Shift and select that reroute, and that's going to add a viewer node, and so whatever the viewer node can see, that is what we're going to see in the background. And so now there's a single wire here that I can plug nodes up to. Now I also want to make the background black, so I can press Shift A, I can go to the search, and I'm going to search for the alpha over node, and we're going to stick the alpha over node after the denoise. And then I want to take the denoise and I want to put that into the bottom image, and then this top image here, that's going to be fully black because that will be the background. So now I can add in some glare nodes, and that's really going to make it look more like glitter. So I'm going to press Shift A, let's go to the search, and I'm going to search for the glare, and let's put the glare after the alpha over. And I want to leave this at streaks, but it's not actually going to do very much, and that's because there's not any super bright areas in the image. So what I can do is I can turn down the threshold, and if I turn down the threshold, it's going to use more of the areas which are not as bright. So basically turning the threshold down will tell it to glare values which aren't quite as bright. So some of these brighter values here, it's going to add the glare. I'm going to turn the threshold down to like a 0.5 on that glare. And then I can also bring these back, and I want to add a second glare, so I can click on the glare node and I can press Shift D to duplicate it, and we're going to stick the glare node after the first one. And then for this glare node, I'm going to click on the streaks and I'm going to instead change it to the fog glow. And then on the threshold here, I think I will turn that down to like a 0.3, but you'll need to play around with the threshold depending on how bright your scene is. So my final threshold values on these glare nodes were both 0.7. And there we go. So now you can see it has some nice glare there, and it looks much more like glitter. It looks more shiny and reflective. So now I'm going to go back over here to the shading workspace, and I can hit the escape key to go back to the nodes. And I'm now going to show you how to create the custom glitter color node so that you can have some color presets for the glitter. So I'm going to press Shift A, let's go to the search, and I'm going to search for the hue saturation value node, and let's stick this here. And then I can press Shift D to duplicate, and let's add another one right up here. And then I can take the color from this color ramp and I can put that in at the bottom, hue saturation. And then I also want to use this original color here because I actually kind of like these colors. If I Control Shift and select the Voronoi texture twice, you can see it's mostly white, but it kind of has some rainbow colors. And when I was looking at reference images of glitter, there is actually some type of glitter which actually looks like this. So I'm going to take the color and put that into this hue saturation value, and then I can Control Shift and select the principled shader again. And then I can just take this color right here and I can stick that into the base color. So now I want to create a custom node, so I'm going to click on this hue saturation value, hold down the shift key and select the other hue saturation value, so they're both selected. And then I can press Ctrl G. So when you press Ctrl G, that is going to join the nodes together into a group. And if I press the tab key, that will go back into the original setup. But if you select the node group and then press the tab key, that will basically go into edit mode of the node group. So I'll press the tab key to go back into the original group. And then if I click here to rename this, I can rename this to glitter color. So there we go. We now have a glitter color node. Now, if I press the tab key to go into this group, I can press the N key to open up the side panel. And if you click right over here on group, you can see there are inputs and outputs. And so if I press the tab key to see the whole node setup, I want this color ramp to be going into the glitter color. And then inside this group, I'm going to create a bunch of different colors. And then those are all going to go into the outputs. And then one thing that I also want to do is flip these, because you can see that they're actually flipped, so they're overlapping. So right up here on the inputs, I can just click on this bottom color one right here, and I can click on this arrow to bring it up to the top. So if I press tab to go back out here, you can see this one right here, this is the top one, that's going to be the colorful glitter, and then this one right here, that's going to be the original color. So I can actually rename these. So if I click on the glitter color, I can press the tab key again to go back into the group. So here on the inputs, I can double click on this to rename this, and I'm going to rename this to colorful white, because this is going to be the glitter which has some color but is mostly white. And to preview it, I can take the hue saturation value and I can replace that here for the group output. And now it's going to go into the shader, and so you can see that is the colorful white. And then right down here on this bottom one, you can see we have the input color, and this one here, I just want this to be the base color. So if I double click on this to rename this, I'm just going to rename it to base color. So now I can press the tab key to go back out of this group, and you can see we have the base color and we have the colorful white. So I can now make a bunch of different outputs, and all of those outputs will be the custom colors. So I can click on this group and I will press the tab key to go into edit mode. So let's rename these. So right here on this outputs, we have the first color, and this one, if I double click to rename it, I'm going to rename it to colorful white. And then I want to add another one in here, and this one's going to be the base color. So let's click on the color right here, and I can put that into this one right here, and that's going to add another one down here. So then I can rename this one as well. So I can double click on this to rename this, and I'm going to rename this one to original. So now if I press the tab key to go back to the original setup here, we have the colorful white, and I can plug that into the base color, or we have the original and I can plug that into the base color. And if we're using the original one, it's going to use this color ramp here. So now let's make a bunch of different colors, and of course you can make as many custom glitter colors as you want. So I will select the glitter color and press the tab key to edit it. So the next glitter that I want to make is a silver glitter. So let's click on this hue saturation value, and I'm going to press Ctrl Shift D. So Ctrl Shift D will duplicate the node, but it'll keep the wire plugged up. And I want all these other ones here to be using the base color, because I want that color ramp to be controlling all of them. And then let's take the color and I can stick this into the next one. And then if I click on here to rename this, I can rename this next one here to silver. And then to actually see it updating, I will press the tab key to go back over here, and I can take the silver and I can put that into the base color, and that way we can actually preview it, and then select the glitter color and again press the tab key. So for this one right here, this one is going into the silver. To make it look like silver, I want to turn the saturation to 0, and that way there won't be any color. So it's not going to use any of the colors. And then I also want to make it a bit brighter, because it does look a little bit dark in some areas. So I'm going to turn the value to 2, and that way it's going to be much brighter. And that is it. So that is the silver glitter. So now let's make the next one. So I can click on the hue saturation value, and I can press Ctrl Shift D. That'll duplicate it but keep the wire plugged up. And then with the hue saturation value selected, I can press the backspace, and that's going to reset it to the defaults. And then let's put the color into this extra one here, and then you can see it's going to be right down here. So the next glitter that I'm going to make is gold. So let's click on the color here to rename this, and I can rename it to gold. And then again, to preview it, I can press tab to go back to the setup. I can plug the gold into the base color, and then I can press the tab key again to go back into it. So to make this look like gold, I'm going to change the hue. So I've found that a hue of 0.8 looks pretty good, and that definitely looks like gold. And then I do want it to be a bit more saturated, so I'm going to click right here to turn the saturation up, and I like a saturation of 1.5 so that it is more saturated. So there we go, we now have some nice gold glitter. Now you don't just have to use the hue saturation value nodes, you could also use color ramps or really any other color nodes. So I'm going to show you how to use a color ramp to make the next one, which is going to be green. So I can press Shift A, I can go to the search, and I'm going to search for a color ramp, and let's stick the color ramp down here. And then I want the base color, the original base color, to be going into this color ramp so that it controls it. And then let's take the color and I can put that into the next one here, so this empty slot, and then right down here you can see it, so I can double click on it to rename it, and I'm going to rename this one to green. And then again, to preview it, I need to press the tab key to go back out, then I can plug the green into the base color, and then I can press the tab key to go back into the node setup. So now I can change the colors here, the color ramp, and that'll actually change the colors for the glitter. So I'm going to leave the black and white values, but I'm going to hold down the control key and click right here to add a tab, bring that over, and I can also hold down the control key and click right there to add another tab. So on this one right over here, I want to make this a brighter color, and I want to make it very green. And then for this white one right over here, I'm gonna make this one kind of a yellowish greenish color and not too saturated. And I'm actually gonna bring it a bit more towards the yellow. So there we go, we now have some green glitter. So the next one that I wanna make is the purplish bluish glitter. So I can click back on this hue saturation value, and I can press Control-Shift-D to duplicate it and bring it down here, and then I can hit the backspace to reset it to its default values. And let's put the color into this empty slot here, and I can actually drag the group input and the group output down so that they're not so high up, so I'll just bring them down. And then if you click right here, you can drag down to open this up, and you can see we have the next one here. So I'm going to rename this one to purple/blue, so purple/blue. And then again, to actually preview it, we need to press the tab key, we need to plug the purple blue into the base color, and then we need to press the tab key again. And for this one, I'm going to turn the hue to 0.4, and that's going to give it much more of a blue color. And then I do want to make it a bit more saturated, so let's turn the saturation up to a 1.2. And there we go, so now I have some purplish colors and some bluish colors. Alright, so the next one is going to be a light blue, and for the light blue, I'm going to use another color ramp. So let's click on the color ramp, and I can press Control-Shift-D, drag it down here, and I can put the color into this slot here. And then if I double click on this to rename this, I'm going to rename it to light blue. And then with the color ramp selected, you can hit the backspace and that'll reset the color ramp. So for this one, I'm going to drag this white tab over. I'm going to drag it way over here. And also we need to preview it, so I can press the tab key. I can plug the light blue into the base color, and then I can press the tab key again to go back into the node setup. So for this light color right here, I'm going to make this a light blue, something like that. And then I'm also going to hold down the control key and click right in there to add another tab. And I'm going to bring this one over so it's pretty close. And then this one, I'm going to make kind of like a dark blue, just so that there's a bit of variation. So there we go. We now have some really nice light blue glitter. So let's make the next one, which is going to be a red one. So again, I'll press Control-Shift-D, drag this down here, and then I can press the backspace to reset it. And I want to put the color into this empty slot here. And right here on this color, I can just rename this to red. Then again, I can press tab to go back to object mode. Let's take the red and put that into the base color to preview it. And then I can press tab to go back to the node setup. So for this one, I want to click on this white tab right here, click on the color, and I'm going to make this a red color, but it's not going to be super saturated. And then I can drag this over to make it lighter because there is a bit too much black. So I'm going to drag it over to about there. Alright, so there is the red one. Now the next one that I want to create is the peppermint one. So the peppermint one is going to have white and red. So I'm going to click on the color ramp. I can press Control-Shift-D to duplicate it, bring it down here. And then let's also drag these down again so they're a bit easier to work with, so I can drag them down. And let's put the color into the empty slot here. And if I double click on this to rename it over here on the side panel, I can rename this to peppermint. So I'm going to take this red color here and I'm going to make it much stronger, and I'm also going to bring it a little bit more towards the pink. And then I'm also going to hold down the control key and click right here to add another tab. I can bring this tab over, and I want to bring it pretty close. And this tab, I want to click right here on the RGB, and I'm going to click and then drag down and let go. And that way I can change all the values at the same time. And I'm going to change this to 1 and hit enter. So by changing all the RGB values to 1, it's going to make it fully white. And then again, we aren't actually previewing it. So let's press the tab key to go back to object mode or go back to the node setup. And then let's take the peppermint. I can put that into the base color, and then I can press tab again to go back to the node setup. So I can now just drag these around, and I don't think I want quite that much white, so I might bring that back a little bit. Something like that is pretty good. All right, there's just one more variation that I want to make, and that is going to be the custom hue color. So I'm going to click on this hue saturation value, and I can press Control-Shift-D. That'll duplicate it, and I'm going to bring it down here, and I can put the color into the extra group output right there. And then right down here on the color, I can rename this, and I'm going to rename this one to custom hue. Now to actually change the custom hue in the node setup, I want to take this hue right here, and I'm going to take a wire, and I'm going to stick that into the group output. So by putting the hue into the group output, I can now press the tab key, and you can see it's actually going to take that hue value and bring it here into the custom node. So this hue value right here is the same hue value which is inside here, because we just put the wire into the group input. And then we're also right up here on the inputs on the side panel, I can just rename this one to custom hue. So I can now press the tab key to go back to the original setup, and I can put the custom hue into the base color. I can also press the N key to close the side panel. So I can now just change the custom hue, and as long as the custom hue is going into the base color, you'll actually be able to preview it. And you can also hold down the shift key to make your movements more sensitive, and I can just drag that around, and we can create really any color that we want for the glitter. So there we have it. There's the custom glitter color. And so we can just drag these into the base color and create really any glitter color that we want. So thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you'd like to help support this channel and purchase the finished procedural material, then you can get that over on my Gumroad store and my Patreon page with the links in the description. And you can also check out my Blender procedural material packs to purchase more of my materials, and you can also check out my Blender procedural material tutorial playlist here on YouTube to learn how to create any of my procedural materials. And if you'd like to help support the channel here on YouTube, then you can also check out the YouTube memberships by clicking there on the join button down there next to the subscribe button. And if you join the YouTube memberships, then you'll be helping to support the channel monthly, and you'll get some cool perks here on YouTube. And you can also use the super thanks feature here on YouTube to send me a little tip if you'd like to do that. And I do appreciate all of your support. So I hope you found this helpful, and thank you for watching.